that you're watching The Pulse on the JoyNews channel. We're coming to you live from our studios here in Accra this afternoon. 9 million SIM cards deactivated as the National Communications Authority carries out its threat to block subscribers who have failed to register their SIM cards with a Ghana card. We will hear from some of the frustrated customers who have thronged the service centers in a desperate attempt to get their SIM cards reactivated.
Register hadada. Omaya me bibia wa hadada. Me wo na menya message say media number. Ene ndo aton esamba ha. Network na nya djuma fa no pass ya transfer 5. We no djuma fo anyina na epon coffee. And esamba no pa still the network na nya djuma.
Also this afternoon, we're looking at Ghana's austerity plan as the team from the International Monetary Fund, IMF, arrives in Ghana to broker talks on policies and reforms that will help the country secure a facility to help restore Ghana's macroeconomic stability. But with ratings agency Moody's further downgrading country to junk status, we'll find out if the country's outlook could slow down our journey to assessing the IMF grant. In the bulletin, the number of candidates who obtain grades between A1 and C6 in the West Africa Senior Certificate Examination exceeds 60%, the highest grade recorded in at least 5 years. What's accounting for this improvement? Stay with us as we engage the Ministry of Education here on The Pulse. The Pulse, as always, is brought to you by Global Communities, Digni Lu, Affordable Safe Sanitation. Don't forget that we're streaming live on our social media handles. It's at JoyNews on TV. You're watching us also on DSTV channel 421, GoTV channel 144. This is JoyNews, independent, fearless and credible journalism. I'm Blessed Sogah. We're back with the details shortly. Please stay. Let's start with issues relating to the SIM card registration. This afternoon, 9 million subscribers are unable to make calls or even send text messages as the National Communications Authority is carrying out its threat to deactivate SIM cards of subscribers who have failed to register their SIM cards with the Ghana card. Some subscribers have thronged the service centers in a desperate attempt to reactivate their SIM cards. They spoke to my colleague, Benis Abubeidu, earlier.
It's the day after members of the telcos chamber that MTN, Vodafone and Airtel Tigo began implementing the directive by the Ministry of Communications contained in a letter dated 11th of November 2022. So we're here to assess the impact of this SIM card blockage. You will remember, or you may recall, that on the 20th of November, they began the gradual deactivation of certain services like data, phone calls. But this time, if your SIM card is blocked, you are not accessing any service, including emergency services, and that tells you how terrible this blockage is. So we are here to find out from some of the clients who are here today how this has affected them and why they have waited this long before coming to register for their SIM cards. I'm told by those who work here that on a typical day you won't see this particular number of people gathered here, and they assume it's because of the blockage that started yesterday. Good morning, Pache Frosing.
From Kwabna.
Now, MTN office anapay.
I'm Baba by Matric and Rame Bahanamo from Anopa Kusia Numreno, Nina network and Anope Masniaba. I was here before they came, but still they haven't even completed 1 person book.
I've already registered it, I've done everything for it, but I don't know that they will cancel or do something like that. So as I put my SIM inside the phone, the internet is not, they say I should fill the full registration. Okay. So I did not know, that's why I don't know. But the other ones that I've already done everything.
Okay. So this one you've not done the biometric?
Yeah, this one I've not, but I've registered it already, but I've not do the completed registration.
Okay. So you didn't hear in the news that they were going to block?
I don't have time to watch TV and this thing, you know. That's
Thank you for talking to us, Ebenezer. But I mean, where would you have been on a typical day, and how is this affecting you?
Oh, it's affecting me, but I have to take it as a normal thing. It's happy. So you have.
How long have you been here this morning?
Oh, around 6.
And why have you not been attended to? Have you been told why?
The network is bad, so we should wait small.
So that's another gentleman who stayed here for quite some time due to network issues. Now, if you follow me, you'd realize that the queue doesn't just end here. It goes all the way to that side, all the way to the back, and there are people who are encountering different challenges. Earlier, I met a gentleman and his mother who say they are Cameroonians and they had registered with their passport. What is happening is that they received a message, according to him, that his number had been registered, and I asked him if he didn't know he had to use the Ghana card, and he said in fact he just got his Ghana card this week, but his number has been blocked. I think he just left the queue because I can't find him. Let me try and see if I can speak to a few more people to find out from them the impact of this directive on them. Good morning, Patrick Felsing.
Salam.
Na me Patrick, anope den edo abaha. So this gentleman says that his WhatsApp services aren't working. As you may be aware, you need data to use WhatsApp. Now, me patron, I will say, which is 30th November. Now, I'm buying a Ministry of Communications. So more register more SIM cards in I am blocking Sanya way now. Oh, yeah, driver. Kwakwanso nti ene wa hai eden na wo hwere wo ejuma bi kwa na bibisa
mirese.
This gentleman says he's a driver. He actually knew of the directive from the Ministry of Communications, but says he was on the road working, so there was no way he could actually make time to register his SIM. And today is his day off, and that's how he's able to do so. Let me find out if I can speak to a few people. Hello, sir. Good morning.
Mohammed.
Mohammed. Na anope den edo abaha.
Pacho misim no. Omugusu send message say me register. Nti first me dekan ba na omo say omo ngindi say be ye na ye omo jimi amiaso me say obi o ma register. Nti actually me ko o state o ma register kwa nchen ho. Me ko o ma register enso enye juma na nsa e wo ma na me WhatsApp line na akate. Nti e na anura ma bata na asa ba say 3 o'clock na me san ko e. Ti anapai aja me san ba ha bio.
Na me patro omo nkwanche na wo ka no omo fa wonsa.
Omo fa me nsa e kire phone say touch na omo kita no omo say o ma register. Nti tembia omo gusu say ni message say me same no ma register e record den on batwa nti na ma sa ba han.
Na one nim short code na ye de check say why you fully registered na
me de ba han obi check e na am buy.
Okay. Right. So Mohammed is also a victim of what I may want to refer to as roadside registration people, if there's anything like that. But these persons are basically not in the offices. Some of them are mobile money agents who offer registration services. Okay, so they did it for him for free, but the unfortunate thing is that he's still not registered. Okay, so this gentleman is actually telling me something. We need to go back to him. Also, one on the register ma ojusika. Okay. Okay, so these people I refer to as roadside registration officers, for lack of a better expression, actually sometimes, according to this man's story, will charge you for doing it. Now,
I see fingerprints. So I say about me checking soon about and run. I'm trying.
Oh, checking and what did that number be checking?
Me check it 400 # star 400 #. Oh, senior.
All right, so it's just some interesting revelations we are getting here of people taking advantage of the situation to swindle others who may not have had the time to register, and so they're going to them in their various localities. And this man is a victim here. He says that he actually paid. What you are saying? What you are saying? He paid 10 cedis to get registered, and unfortunately, he finds himself back here because the registration didn't happen. Me pacho ite saying?
Yeah.
I no pay.
Oh, make SIM card nintina me ba register wa hadada. O maya me bibia wa hadada. Me wo na menya message say media number. Ele ndo aton esamba ha. Network na nya djuma fa no pass ya transfer 5. We no djuma fo anyina na epon coffee. And esamba no pa we still the network na nya djuma.
Na me paucho o se omo ye bibia ma omo je won nsa no so.
Ma chwa picture ni nyina me dimi nsa to ade no so ni nyina. Fi dem meeting message ni say emba enti me nsa ento ma lock me WhatsApp ni nyina.
Put me your call.
And for the minimum sister your call but minimum say the ma chwa ma I don't know.
What you feel saying?
Fidelia.
Okay, so for Fidelia here, she says she's done everything and she did it right here at this office. They took her biometrics, they took her photograph, but she received a message that her number will be blocked because she's not completed her registration. I was finding out from her what kind of services she can't access. She says data, WhatsApp, but she was able to make a phone call today. Into fingerprints, a picture, but still I ain't registered.
Yeah, me standing in our house. My yelling in our house. And to imagine me pictures made me sent to any in our so. And to me say, baby, I okay. And you mean coming me couldn't baba me couldn't and ba. Median and buy this of my message, but I mean who phone to say. And my kind so my blocking me were cheap and WhatsApp in
But it's all down to the fact that their data services especially are being cut. So if you're one of those who has not fully registered, the Telecoms Chamber tells us that this is only affecting those who have done the first part of the registration and not captured their biometrics. So if you haven't done the registration at all because you don't have a Ghana card, you're not going to be affected by this. But if you've done the first part of your registration, kindly find a way of completing it so that your data services, your SMS services, your call services, and most importantly, emergency services are not.
Let's explore the implications of this exercise, especially when we have millions of Ghanaians who are yet to get their Ghana card. Joining me now is Nkosia Frimpoma Sapong, who is the chairperson of the Convention People's Party. The party says it is equally concerned about the deactivation of some 9 million cards. It's good to have you here on the polls. But let's get the concerns of the CPP clearly. Is it the case that you're asking for an extension, or perhaps how do you feel government should be going about this policy?
Thank you very much, and let me say hi to all your viewers. It's more than extension. I personally, I don't even understand why the media is not putting so much pressure on this minister, and she's getting away. I mean, technically with murder. What she's doing is not right. What is the point? What are they trying to take? What did she say? She's taking, they called me, took all my information. Then now I have to now connect. Me, myself, have to go there to connect. Wherever I went to, they didn't have the network wasn't working. So I stayed there and I stopped. But they took the information already. What is she doing? What is happening? What is she doing with NIA? Where is the NIA data that they took from us? Why are they not connecting? Please, media, why are you not asking the right questions?
If you're talking about the questions have been explained, I guess. The sector minister says, and just hold on for me a minute. The sector minister says,
demand answers from her.
Just a minute. The sector minister says, if it's about the National Identification Authority, that's not within my purview. I'm just paraphrasing what it is that the minister says. So why does the NIA?
It's the communication minister who has asked the telecoms to take my data off, not NIA. That is just shifting blame. The data is under communication minister. The president must take the digital information thing from the communication ministry. They don't have a clue what they.
Well, it appears that we're having some challenges there with the connection to Nkosia Sapong, who is the chairperson of the Convention People's Party. The party believes that beyond extension, there are equally critical questions that should be, of course, put to the sector minister, Esla Osu-Akufo, who they believe is not acting in good faith. Well, in terms of the extension of the deadline and whatever it is that you need to know, here are steps of what you need to know on your screens right now, giving us a sense as to what's even happening, even in terms of some data for you. So here's it. In terms of the starting date itself for all of this, we know that the 1st of October 2021, that's when we had the exercise takeoff. Then the first deadline was set for the 31st of March 2022. Obviously, looking at the number of registrants in terms of the NIA cards, that's the National Identification Cards, or the Ghana cards as we popularly refer to them, the ministry, and by extension the minister as well, said she was reluctantly, those were her words, extending the deadline to somewhere around August. So the next extension was the 31st of July, after which August, some punitive measures were supposed to be taking off. Then there was another window again, extending that exercise to the 31st of September with a clear sanction of some phased out or face-to-face implementation of sanctions once you do not get registered. So data clearly is indicating to us that there was a 90% drop in the SIM registrations as soon as we had the first deadline extended, and that was part of the concerns of the National Communications Authority. The fact that many more people were buying time anytime, of course, there was a lapse in the system where NTA and, of course, the Ministry of Communications had to give an extended deadline. So beyond that, we need to also paint a picture of how many people have been registered and what we are looking at in terms of the penetration so far. So if you're looking at the registration details now, you see that total voice SIMs as of the 20th of July 2020 was amounting to some 42,121,921, representing the full set of SIM cards that have been issued as of 20th of July 2022. But the requirement is that you need to go through a two-phased registration process. So as of the first phase on the 20th of July 2022, we had over 60% of Ghanaians, or let me say owners of SIM cards, because you can't necessarily connect the 42 million to the individuals. You can only deal with the number of SIM cards. So about 60% of the total number of voice SIMs that we have across the country were linked to at least a Ghana card. The maximum you can do, obviously, will be 10. And so we know that it's quite a significant number of the SIM cards were connected to the Ghana card. But many were unable. And if you look at the figures there, 38% of the people were that tiny population that were able to scale through and to do the second part of the requirements in terms of doing their registration. So a significant portion of some 62% were unable to go through and to do the stage 2 registration, which is the complete exercise of registering your SIM card. And basically that's why we're having some of the challenges that we're having now. Some 9 million persons unable to make calls. Some do say that, well, at the time the connection was done, their Ghana cards had to be replaced, and so many excuses that we're hearing of. And part of it is why we're having the CPP raise some concerns. So let's speak to Nana Akosua, who's joining us back on Zoom. Apologies there for losing you earlier. Nana Frimpoma, apologies for losing you there earlier, but the question about what you intend to do now, I guess we need to explore that. What will be the next line of action for the CPP? Because you are saying that let's take on the communications minister.
I think this problem, it has nothing to do with CPP. It has to do with the country. 9 million people, not CPP. I can't even, that is why I'm charging and asking the fourth estate, the media, to take up this responsibility. We've spoken.
And Nana Frimpoma, if you can just tell me, appears we were unable to hear you. If you could just, of course, reconnect that for us, so we can get the point. Yes, you're back on. So you're making the point about this being a matter of national security that average Ghanaian should be concerned about. Nana, you'd have to unmute once more. Let's try if we can get that through again.
9 million Ghanaians.
Right.
And I'm most certain that the people you saw in the queue are mainly the vulnerable, those that really don't have the time. And a chunk part of them are stuck in the villages. This is so unfair. It does not make no sense. It doesn't make no digital, there's no justification in the digital technology, in this information world, in this technological era for this kind of mess. There's no justification. We are asking, the minister is doing something that she has no clue, no understanding, and the whole Ministry of Communication, it's just completely wasting our time. They called me, took all my information and everything. And all they had to do was connect me to the NIA. Is there a problem between the Ministry of Communication and NIA? It looks like there is a rift there. And that is what they should try and solve. If they can solve and handle their problem, we Ghanaians would work better. Because if there weren't any problem, they have already taken my bio data. Why can't they connect me? Why can't I just go there with a code or dial a code and get authenticated? Wasn't the same minister who came online to tell us that we can do this online, that we can do it with a code, that it can be done, that you pay 5 Ghana cedis? Do you know how many times I've gone to the center and they can't connect me because the systems are down? So the point I'm making clearly is that this is most unacceptable. There is I don't even know who needs our data. Somebody is collecting our data for purposes that we need to question as a nation. This has nothing to do with CPP. It has to do with a nation. And if the government in power cannot do it, then we are going to have to fall on the fourth extreme. We have to fall on the media, give them the pressure. We are falling on the youth of this country. People should start asking, intelligent youth should start asking questions. Those of you who understand IT should know that something is amiss, something is wrong. They are taking our data and selling it left and right or giving it out there without knowing. Why should I go to MTN to give them my data? Go biometrics, go to product, do the same thing. If I have 3 lines, go to the other telephone company and do the same thing. When I have given my bio data already to NIA, let me tell you something. Initially, the NIA concept that I understood was that they would collect our data and be able to have it secured. And for that reason, if anybody needed to really verify me, all the person needed to do was take my national ID card and then connect it to whatever they were trying to do and dial into the NIA data center or whichever data center was going to store the information. It should then pull verified or not verified. My name should come, my face should come, and then the person who is there can then authenticate that it's me or not me. But now that they are giving that data to a private sector, indeed, they are forcing us to give that data to a private sector. They have wasted the time of NIA and spent so much money. The money that they paid margins to be able to do this. What was the purpose? They paid it. How are we going to recoup that money? Now, if they just can take my information, then now the private individual, the private institution is even much richer, but much more resourced in terms of having information on me, because they have my talk time, they have everything, my data, they know what I do online, everything, and now they have also my biometrics. Where in the world is this done, except Ghana? Where in the world is this done? We copy blindly. I'm daring that Ministry of Communication to come and tell us what it says, why they are collecting this, forcing us, indeed, pushing us to a corner, forcing us literally. They blocked my business, blocked every other people's business. People can't make calls. And there are people who have really genuine, real reason why they don't have the NIA, the communication card. So indeed, what they are saying is that my problem is the fact that I did the semi-registration. If it didn't complete, what has that got to do with me? If their lines are down, what has that got to do with me? Please, Honorable Esla Owusu, for goodness sake, you were the very person that was preaching about cluelessness and incompetence and everything. This is the peak of it. This is the peak of it. Beyond this, there's no other word except somebody who is now mortgaging the whole country. Somebody is mortgaging us for peanuts. And we need to look at it.
Well, I guess will not be responsible for the opinion you're passing now.
I understand. I don't want you to be responsible.
Yeah, that will entirely...
I am speaking. I want somebody to challenge me, to prove to me why they're doing this. Because I understand data. I understand data. I understand IT. And I know this is not the way. Nowhere. Why? Why would the government pay so much money, collect my fingerprints, collect my facial, put it into a data? It should be secured. And now you are forcing me to give it to all the telcos. Why will you do that? If it's not because you have an ulterior motive or cluelessness. Either you have a motive or you are clueless. And you are not listening. I don't want it to be like it's an opposition. I am a Ghanaian and I care about the people of this country. Everybody knows my background. I have worked for the youth of this country, and that's all I'm interested in. No matter what, even if I'm taken to the guillotine, I will still stand for the youth of Ghana. This is not acceptable to our children. It is not working. Somebody is doing something very, very wrong. And if she's not going to listen, we need to say something that will let them listen. And the only way for me to say it is to say that, yes, indeed, I'm being mortgaged. And that one, I'm sure somebody is going to come out there and start now listening and hearing. Until you say something like that, nobody listens to you.
Right.
I have done a press conference months ago when this thing came out, because I thought it would be cut off. And it's so simple. It's so simple. Let them connect me. I have my phone number here. And a simple artificial intelligence will tell everybody that this is me and these are my children and these are the people I talk to. Connect me to that system. At least now you have taken my biometrics. You have it there. Now you want me to give it to them. I am angry. This is similar to slavery. This is exactly what happened to us in our forefathers when they didn't know what they were doing. Now we know what we are doing. Look at what we are doing today. We have sold our gold for peanuts. We sold our bauxite for peanuts. We sold everything for peanuts. We sold our talk time for peanuts. We don't even have access to our own talk time in this country. We don't own no telephone company. We don't own no data. And now, just collecting my biometrics you are not selling it to the private sector. Why would you do that? Why would you do that?
Interesting questions you're asking there. I guess the conversation will continue.
And it's questions that I want you to demand an answer. Right. There are people in the media who are IT intellectuals who can call people and find out why there is whatever Esla said. I listened to her. There is no for authentication. If you want to authenticate who I am, you don't need to collect my information again with the telcos. Are you not the government? Are you not for the people? You're supposed to represent me and represent my children and our grandchildren. You're supposed to protect us. Who is protecting us? Clueless people?
I get your concerns. We'll still keep asking the questions. I guess that's all we can do for now. Nana Frimpoma, we are grateful for your time here on The Pulse. Chairperson of the Convention People's Party, the International Monetary Fund, has arrived in Ghana to broker talks on policies and reforms that will help the country secure a facility that will help restore Ghana's macroeconomic stability. But with ratings agency Moody's further downgrading the country to junk status, warning, of course, to investors that they risk losing out in a debt restructuring program should they decide to transact business with Ghana. We ask, will the country's outlook slow down our journey to assessing the IMF grant? Well, joining me now is Professor Lok Mensah, an economist and also Associate Professor at the Department of Finance, University of Ghana Business School. Thank you, Prof. You were with us yesterday. Today you're spending some time with us again. But it's good news to know that at least the team has confirmed that they've started engagements. Initially, the president was working with the timeline of ending almost everything regarding the talks and staff level agreement by the end of December. Should we still be looking forward to that timeline?
Yeah, I think, yes. From now to the end of December, we still have more time. And I believe with the intensity of the engagement now, probably we may have a staff level program by the end of December. So yes, we are within time, and I believe it should be able to be something that we can realize, within this month.
And what then will be the key issues? What do you see as the key issues featuring this time around in this phase of the negotiations? Some have talked about the debt restructuring, which government hasn't openly told us what approach they're going to be pursuing. But what do you see happening in the few days to come?
Yeah, I think the main issue will be the budget that was read and how feasible that budget can be, realized. We understand that it is a budget, but then that budget needs to achieve something. And I believe that it's a budget that the IMF will be interested in a sense that it is a budget that will position, the country for the program. And so they may have to go into details to see, how, realistic those numbers that have been projected as far as our expenditure lines are concerned. And then also the revenue lines are concerned, whether, we can realize, those revenues that have been projected. So the possible financing of those, the budget deficit, I think it will be a center of discussion, going forward. And I know the IMF will be interested in that.
So of course, macroeconomic indicators for now, looking at some of them, not necessarily macroeconomic indicators, but in fact, the issue about fuel prices. It may be part of the inflationary argument. We're beginning to see that some marginal drops are happening, at least with oil on the open market as we speak. Is this a sign that indeed governments, emergency response measures are beginning to take effect? Is that the explanation to what's happening right now?
Yeah, if you look at the dynamics of our interest rate structures, the exchange rate and all, it looks like we have peaked. And now what we need to realize is how we can come down. And the government seems to be, putting up measures that possibly will bring some of these indicators down so that Ghanaians will have that kind of, possible relief. Because, interest rate getting to a level where we're looking at about 30% and above, and then inflation hitting around 42% clearly it tells you that we have peaked. For now, it behoves on the government's policies to bring us down to the level where Ghanaians can be relieved. So there seems to be that kind of signal on the ground that we are getting relief, all right. But then, hey, the global market too is, getting that kind of direction where things will start getting better. So transcending to the Ghanaian environment is not bad, but we need to speed up, things.
And finally, we're looking forward to next year, 2023. What's your outlook? Some have predicted tough times. Of course, the IMF pointing to some very troubling times for us ahead. But personally, what's your outlook?
Yeah, troubling time depends on where you sit. I think for now, if we should get an IMF program, definitely there's going to be hard times in certain circles. Push government to cut down expenditure lines, possibly push government to raise revenue. And the signals were in the budget. The budget that was read where government is looking at 2.5 VAT introduction. So even if fuel price comes down the global market, and the intention is for it to transcend to our local market, that VAT of 2.5 may kind of offset this kind of benefit that we're supposed to enjoy from, the downward spiral in, fuel price on the global market. So for me, it is something that, we're going to face, hardship going forward. But I mean, it's for our own good, until we get an IMF program where the dollar can easily be completely tamed down, for which, if you look at the budget that was read, government intends to spend into sectors that are sensitive. And I believe that if indeed we should spend into those areas, we should get relief by second half of next year.
Well, we'll be on the lookout for what then happens, but we're grateful for your time, Professor Lord Mensah, Associate Professor in the Department of Finance at the University of Ghana Business School. Now to the education front. The number of candidates who obtained grades between A1 and C6 in the West Africa Senior School Certificate Examination is exceeding 60%, the highest grade recorded in at least 5 years. On your screens now, you have a breakdown of the figures as to how the performance has gone through for this year's WASSCE. But of course, what's accounting for this improvement? That's the big question we're all asking. Joining us via Zoom now is spokesperson for the Ministry of Education, Kwesi Kwarteng. We also have Agnes Kujo, who's PR for the West Africa Examination Council. She's also joining us on phone. But for now, let me start off with Kofi Asare, who's the Executive Director for the Africa Education Watch. You issued a report recently, Kofi, indicating what you've witnessed as some of the infractions that takes place and mars the integrity of the examination process. But with this 60% hike we're recording, are you able to independently verify if the integrity, first of all, of the examination process was fair?
Good afternoon to your cherished audience. We indicated in our WASSCE report of 2022 that there was a massive improvement in question security. We indicated that for the first time, only 2 questions leaked compared to 11 that were, that leaked in the previous year's examination. And we call that an improvement because we believe that all the problems will not end overnight. And so it is heartwarming to see that a maximum of 60% of students had credits in all the 4 core subjects. I think that a lot more students are putting in hard work. The teachers are doing their best. Government is supporting the process. And given the investment government is making in secondary education and the commitment of teachers and also the students, one would not expect anything lower than such a performance. And so we are happy to see such a result. Again, looking at the statement WAEC released, we also realized that there is an increase of about 187% in the number of subjects that were cancelled compared to last year, from about 1,300 last year to about 3,600. It tells us 2 things. First, that the magnitude of exam malpractice keeps increasing. That is why more and more papers are being cancelled. But it also tells us that WAEC is being much more proactive in dealing with such incidents when they arise. And that is why the number of papers that they are cancelling, is also increasing. It will be great to see WAEC, being more involved in efforts to prevent examination malpractice than to punish, those who participate in that enterprise. Because we believe that the best way to prevent examination malpractice is actually to ensure it doesn't happen at all, rather than, exacting punitive, measures on those who participate in that. The bigger picture is that we have a long way to go, even though we are doing well. At the West African level, for instance, Nigeria is doing 76%, pass rate, and we are doing 60% this year. We've done well this year. Unfortunately, Nigeria dropped. They were doing about 82% last year, and this year they dropped. But even in their drop, they are doing 76%, 16 percentage points higher than us. So we have shown a positive, sign, an improvement. We hope that the fluctuations we've seen between 2020 and 2021 and 2022, doesn't emerge again, so that we'll see a more consistent trend instead of the fluctuating trends as WAEC identifies in their own analysis, the release. And then also we hope that very soon we'll catch up with Nigeria and overtake Nigeria. So far, I think we are doing well.
Let's hear from Agnes on perhaps what may be accounting for this. And for you, Agnes, I'm not too sure. Verify this for us. We know that obviously there's supposed to be a chief examiner's report. Is that out yet? And even if it's not, what initial findings do you feel is accounting for this improvement in the performance for WASSCE this time around?
I think that the chief examiners spoke about the standard of the papers. They indicated that the papers were comparable to that of previous years. They added that the questions were drawn from wide spectra of the syllabuses. The chief examiners also indicated candidates' weaknesses and strengths, and they listed some of the strengths of the candidates' ability in some of the subject areas, as well as their weaknesses. And then they gave us some suggested remedies. As to what, going into details as to the reasons why the performance for this year's examination is as stated, I think we'll need to do more work. And I think that the Ghana Education Service, the Ministry of Education, will be the best parties to come out with the
remedies.
Performances
and I'm interested in the remedies you were talking about, for instance, that the chief examiner's reports raised. What were some of the key concerns and recommendations on how to solve them?
I think that there were some of the remedies. For example, if you look at integrated science, you have some of the suggested remedies is for candidates to be taught to understand the rudiments of scientific concepts, improving their knowledge of scientific terms. When you look at a subject such as English language, candidates are advised to do more reading and to read around to be able to gain mastery of the subject areas. So these are some of the recommendations that we have from the chief examiner.
The issue about the integrity of the papers itself is perhaps something that we need to talk about. The Africa Education Watch is pointing out that there appears to be some sort of an improvement in terms of the integrity test, yet you still have some more work to do. What reforms are you rolling out at WAEC just to try and enforce that integrity test whenever, of course, the name of these
I think that after the conduct of every examination, we do we look back at the processes, and then we come out with ways to make things even better. So we have released the results for this examination. We are going to look back at right after the conduct of the exam, we even held a debriefing session to look at some of the challenges, to look at some of the issues that came up during the examination, and to fine-tune those situations going forward. So definitely before the conduct of the next diet of examinations, that is in 2023, the council will take a look at its processes and then look at ways by which we can secure test security, at which we can ensure that test security is even tightened.
All right, then. We're grateful for your time. That's Agnes Teikujo. And for you, Mr. Sari, just as we wrap up on the conversation, going forward, what's, of course, your suggestion and possibly the recommendations on how to, first of all, consolidate this? And there's also, be mindful of this, the angle of the free senior high school policy. How do we juxtapose all of this, even as we look forward to sustaining the gains that we've made as a nation?
I think the Ministry of Education has started some initiatives to strengthen secondary education by getting the approval of Cabinet of a new secondary education policy. You may have heard the ministry indicate that the secondary education reform will include making secondary education 6 years, more or less adding junior high schools to the secondary schools instead of its current position as part of the basic school system. All these interventions are initiatives that require a lot of critical review and discussion to ensure that whatever intention the ministry has, is rolled out in a manner that ends up achieving the original intent objective of improving quality. And so, in the long term, I want to see the ministry engage stakeholders much more on how it intends to reform, to roll out the secondary education reform and strengthen secondary education so that we can have 6 years of engagement at the secondary level compared to the 3 years we currently do. Don't forget that our guys in Nigeria are doing 6 years at the secondary level and we are doing 3 years. But apart from that, it's also important for the ministry to continue to lead the process of reforming the assessment system. We are happy that DNI involvement in the question distribution led to a significant reduction in the leakage of papers. And we want to see much more efforts paid at examination hall security. I'm talking about invigilation. The issues relating to the use of mobile phones in the examination hall require a lot of emphasis and enforcement. And so we will continue to work together with the Ministry of Education and WAEC and the security agencies to ensure that WASSCE and then the BC, improves in credibility, becomes leak-proof, and also we stamp out examination practices from our external assessment system in Ghana.
Kofi Asare, we're grateful for your time. You're still with us here on The Pulse. Still to come, National Democratic Congress is demanding the immediate release of a social media activist Siedu, whose whereabouts remain unknown after he was picked up at 3 a.m. today. We'll hear from the party shortly.
We will not allow any force, any power to subvert the will of the people and to trample on our rights. That is not something.
Yeah, welcome back to The Pulse. Now, the road tolls may be back again simply because government is seeking to reintroduce the revenue measure. The policy was abolished or put on hold this year when government introduced the electronic transactions levy. But indications that after the passage of the 2023 budget, road tolls may be introduced in some parts of the country. Well, the group concerned about this, that's the Ghana Toll Workers Union, is asking government to engage the group ahead of the reintroduction of the revenue measure. Edward Duncan is General Secretary of the Ghana Toll Workers Union. Eddie, it's good to be talking to you. Of course, I recall at the time the roads minister gave that indication that it was going to suspend. At least we didn't get an indication that entirely road tolls will no longer be in this country. So it was suspended. Granted that was the directive. You are saying that before government reintroduces or go ahead with the policy or revenue measure, your group needs to be engaged. Why?
Yes, rightly so. Thank you very much for the opportunity. And again, from the beginning, we've said that this new policy that the government is taking, the direction, is wrong. They shouldn't have scrapped the tolls in the first place. So now that it is coming back, government should engage us. We used to work there. It was through no fault of ours that you decided to change policy, and then you zero-rated tolls or you suspended it. Right. Now that it is coming back, we expect that the government should engage us because, mind you, when you were closing down the tolls, you told us that you're going to look for alternate livelihood for us. And then there was another promise that was made. We will come to that. So the alternate livelihood from November last year, 2021 till now, we have not been engaged. None of our members have been engaged. So what we've said and what Ghanaians have said, you've taken it into consideration and you're bringing back the tools. Yes, of course, who you said you're going to... But
at least we heard of reassignment or redeployment. Yes. That was the indication from the minister. So, and ever since November, nothing like that had happened. There's nobody has been given any kind of reassignment anywhere. So, you're bringing back the tools. So, obviously, there's nowhere you could have taken us. That's why we're still at home. So if you bring it back the tool where we used to work before, then naturally
you should take us back so that we go with.
There was the outstanding issue, I recall, of salary arrears at the time. Some of the tolls toll booths were closed across the country. How much is in arrears as we speak? And will you be asking for that payment to be made before you're redeployed once more to some of these points?
Well, to calculate it, it's from January this year, we've not been paid. And the promise was that we're going to get paid until we are reassigned. So from January to when we are engaged again, the government owes us. But I mean, the thing is that what we really want is to be able to be productive in the country. So first of all, as the work is coming, the toll work is coming back, fair enough. Engage us first, and then we will talk about the arrears that is owed us. Yes.
Why would the engagement be necessary? Some also argue that, for instance, you were out of employment at the time government closed the toll booths.
On what conditions and what basis? I mean, what happened? We were working fine. It was through no fault of ours. We were not paid off, as was being rumored in some time back. We've not been paid off. So if it was a case that we've been paid off or settled, then of course we have no cause to call for reassignment. But in this case, we've not been paid off. So, I mean, legitimately, we have a right. And per the promises that the government made of reassigning us, we have not been reassigned. So if you're bringing back the toll, naturally, you should engage us again, unless there's something else that the government has not told us. But the funny thing too is that, Blessed, it's the posture of the authorities is really, I would say, is a bit bad, because I mean, until we go out there and demonstrate or do something before authorities will engage us, this is really wrong. It's a wrong example that we're setting to the people of this country. So engage us. I mean, call us, speak to us, explain this with us, let us know how you want to roll out this issue. But again, I mean, if the authorities do not call us, we will take the step, I mean, in the coming days.
Okay, the road toll itself may be a nuisance to a lot of Ghanaians. I hope you understand, because at the time the tolls were taking off, the replacement was supposed to be the electronic transactions levy. Yeah. That levy is still around, and Ghanaians will still have to pay for the toll. So what would you say to a critic who say, well, we don't need the toll booths back and working again?
Well, you do need a toll booth to work again. I mean, there are so many revenues that the country collects. We need money to develop the country. There are so many revenues that we collect. Toll is one part of it. I mean, and besides that, you're collecting revenue. But look at this. We're talking about 800 of Ghanaians who will be employed, who otherwise will be sitting at home, and we all know what the devil finds work for the idle hand. So 800 of us, just suppose, so bring us employers, put us back to working in the toll. I mean, and I do understand that people, naturally nobody wants to pay taxes. So initially, when this thing was implemented, a few people were jubilating. But I can tell you, from surveys and interviews that has gone on, now the citizens are calling for the bringing back of the toll. So initially, people were jubilating, but now they realize that no, it was a wrong decision that the government took. So,
have you made attempts to, of course, engage the roads minister, the transport minister? To what extent have you gone in laying your concerns down and asking government to engage you on this?
Well, we've taken steps, to the Ministry of Roads and Highways, and we've been trying to engage the minister. We've engaged a lot of the parliamentarians as well. We've engaged the minority side in parliament. And at this point, I'd like to say a big thank you to Honorable Kwame Abuja. He's been immensely helpful to us. And then Honorable Ahmed Ibrahim. Not just the NDC MPs or the minority MPs, but even the MPP MPs, when you get the opportunity to speak to them, most of them, in confidence, will tell you that they really do not understand why the tolls were scrapped in the first place. So, but I cannot mention names. A lot of them expressed, so they've all supported it and all that. So, well, we just hope that, the right thing will be done by the government.
And for now, you're about 800.
Yes, please.
There are persons with disability in that group, because as part of government policy, some priority was given to that group of, people when, of course, their redeployment or their engagement was happening. What are you able to say about the status of your members in terms of the financial standing?
Very, very difficult. I mean, Blessed, you would admit, and everybody will admit that. You know, it was bad in November last year, but it is worse now. You know, I mean, for those who are even working, you know, they are crying, you know. And then how about us who are not working? And my wife will use this word, we are dead. You know, I mean, we are not working. Some of our colleagues are persons with disability who cannot do certain things that otherwise able people could have been able to do. So we're in a big mess right now. You know, I have said this time and time again. Some time back I had the opportunity, I said it. Some of our people express suicidal sentiments, you know, from what is it called, a documentary that was organized by one of the TV stations. And some have lost relationships. Some have been thrown out of their homes. You know, there has been a lot of documentaries on the plight of, you know, former toll workers, which is really, really bad and really sad. So the government, with all this, I mean, as a matter of agency, she just call us all back to work since you're bringing back.
When the promise of redeployment was made by the minister, what levels of engagement took place as to whether or not you were going to be, first of all, redeployed or giving a new role, which will at least give you some level of income while government redesigns, I mean, its policy on road tolls?
Yeah, so, you know, majority of the tolls in Ghana were under some private contractors. So we engage those under the private contractor. We engage the chairman, and we subsequently engage the minister, Honorable Minister for Roads and Highways on several occasions, you know, as to how they plan to redeploy us or reassign us. Now, it was through all these negotiations or all these meetings that in June, if you quite remember, somewhere in June, the private contractor gave us a letter of termination of appointment because he said that its engagement with the government to find alternate livelihood for us the government is not fulfilling its part of it, or is not able to fulfill it. He didn't blame the government squarely, but he said they are not fulfilling that part of it. So he has to wash his hands off us, so that, you know, we kept giving him pressure, we kept calling, we kept asking for meetings to find out what is happening with us. And it got to that time where he said the pressure is too much for him because he's not getting anything from the government. So then he had to let us go. That is how come we got termination of appointment somewhere in June. So we've engaged. But like I said, it's sad that we have to always take the step. We would prefer that the government, because our leadership, we presented our organigram to the Ministry of Roads and Highways. We presented it to all the rightful authorities that need to know us and recognize us. And so it is not difficult to identify the leadership of the group and engage us, you know, to know how you're going to roll out this. I have said this so many number of times that, Blessed, when it comes to tolls and things, I mean, issues around tolls and how to make it better, there's no proper person to engage than those of us who work there, who barely sleep there. We work there. The toll work is a 24/7 thing. Right. You know, holidays, weekends, when it's raining, when the weather changes, whatever situation, we are there. So we can give you first-hand information on how to improve upon, you know, the revenue collections there. But sadly, we never get engaged.
Government is in a dire need of revenue now. Between the e-levy and the road toll, where will your best bets be in terms of generating the necessary, of course, funds for government? Some are torn between the e-levy and the road tolls. Of course, the argument is still out there. You will tell me, because of your bias, that you believe in the road tolls more.
Well, and rightly so, it should be that, right? Blessed. This is electronic. E-levy is an electronic system. You don't need a lot of manpower because it's already there. I mean, we have our gadgets, we're using it, blah, blah, you know. But when it comes to road tolls, you are employing about 800 workers, you know, which is going to reduce your level of unemployment in the country, which in effect is going to reduce insecurity in the country. So, I mean, if you ask me, I will tell you, even if I wasn't working in toll, I will tell you that no, it is better, because seeing that you also need revenue, and e-levy is not the only source of raking revenue for the government. You know, there are other sources that you rake revenue. So why is it not that toll could also be part of that mechanism that generates revenue for the country?
But sadly, and this will be the final one, the reality is government may not redeploy all of your members, because the indication is that the road tolls will be implemented in just some parts of the country. And that may leave some significant amount of persons out of the 800 number you're giving us jobless. What's the position of your association on that? Do you want all members to be redeployed and that no one should be losing their jobs once their reassignment is taking place?
Well, Blazer, that would be the ideal thing to wish for. I mean, we will wish that none of our members will lose their job through this change of policy and that they bring it back at its own. But sadly, we also do know that if this is the direction that the government wants to take, it might affect some of the workers. And then again, you know, some of the workers, some have passed on. Last time I said it here, through this issue, some have passed on. And sadly, a couple of them have also moved back to the villages. They call that they moved back to their villages and all. As to whether they will come back as this new announcement, I can't tell. But it might, if the government decides that it's not going to open all the road tolls, and it's going to affect some of the workers. It's sad, but we wish that that would not be the case. But half a loaf, as they say, is better than none. So if that is the case, with a pinch of salt, we'll just take it and swallow it.
Anyway, Adi Duncan is the General Secretary for the Ghana Toll Workers Union. We'll still be on the lookout for that policy and see what indeed will happen in the coming days. But on now to some politics. The opposition National Democratic Congress is demanding the immediate release of a social media activist, Seth Osei Asiedu, after he was picked up by the security agencies in the early hours of today. The party is alleging that the NDC supporter is being kept in unlawful custody with details of his whereabouts still unknown and is still in question. The social media activist a couple of days ago took to social media to suggest in his post that customers of commercial banks may not be able to access their funds owing to the recent downgrade by rating agency Fitch. And Northern Member of Parliament Samuel Okudzeto Ablakwa has been addressing the media a while ago on that matter. He says that the NDC will descend heavily on President Akufo-Addo if Kweku Rafik, as his social media account is known as, is not released in the next 24 hours.
Osei Asiedu has been in a Gestapo-style raid, arrested this dawn at about 3:30 a.m. where he lives, somewhere in Amasaman. He was bundled into a national security vehicle. It appeared to have been a joint operation between the national security, officials of the Signals Bureau of the National Security Council, and the Ghana Police Service, according to eyewitnesses. And these eyewitnesses include the parents of Mr. Asiedu. It is important to emphasize that during the Gestapo raid, there was no evidence of a search warrant. His rights were not read to him, and he was just bundled. His rights violated. As we speak, we do not know where the gentleman is. We must commend his father, who, despite the horrendous circumstances, he mustered the courage to accompany them. His father accompanied them in the van, and they arrived at a location in Labone. We have since, upon receiving frantic calls, gone to that location. It turns out that is the Signals Bureau of the National Security Council at Labone. We demanded to speak to the official in charge. We did hold a meeting with the director in charge of the Signals Bureau. He told us that they only provided technical support and that they have the expertise in tracking down people who they believe have put out social media posts that, in his words, are of interest to the state, whatever that means. We demanded to see our comrade and colleague. The official told us that he has since been transferred to the police CID headquarters in Accra. We subsequently proceeded to the police CID headquarters. To our utter shock, all the officials we met at the police CID told us that they have no knowledge of the said arrest, of the operation, and that they are not aware that Mr. Asiedu is being held by any unit under the Ghana Police Service. Indeed, the police CID made calls in our presence. They called their colleagues in various departments and units under the Ghana Police Service. After all those calls, they told us that none of their colleagues know about the arrest and the detention of Mr. Seth Asiedu. Based on these frightening, worrying, and very distressing developments, we have been compelled to call this press conference because we know that what oppression, what tyranny fears is sunshine, is transparency. Once we expose the shenanigans, the underhand dealings, and the outright oppression of innocent civilians, we know that those agents and assigns of this heartless, undemocratic Akufo-Addo regime will be forced to produce our comrade and colleague.
It's not only the Northern MP that's concerned about this. Lawyer for the social media activist, Sami Jemfi, says the family of his client is still in the dark over where Seth Asiedu is being kept. He adds that no search warrant was secured by the security agencies to search his room and also carry out the arrest.
I was contacted early this morning and informed about the arrest, the Rambo-style arrest of Kweku Rafik, or our comrade Seth Asiedu. And so I went to the office of the National Signal Bureau at Labone, just around where the old Metro TV network is located. I went there not only in my capacity as a comrade of Seth or Kweku Rafik, but in my capacity as a legal practitioner, and offered pro bono, legal services for our colleague Kweku Rafik. And so we demanded to see him as lawyers for him. But to our utter shock and dismay, as Honorable Ablako has already said, the Signals Bureau told us that they didn't have him and could not produce him. And we were specifically directed to the office of the Director General of the CID. That was a specific official we were directed to by the National Signals Bureau. We went there. She was not at post. Her deputy was also not at post, but the Director of Administration and other senior police officers were at post. And after listening to us, they made queries, but all the officers and departments they contacted informed them that they knew nothing about the said operations or the arrest, and that they didn't know the whereabouts of our brother Seth Osei-Assiedu. So even before we talk about the immediate release of Osei-Assiedu, for me as a lawyer, okay, the first thing we are interested in is his whereabouts. Seth Osei-Assiedu has to be found. His parents, loved ones are very worried. We don't know where he's being kept and how he's being treated. We don't know whether he has even eaten. We don't know whether he's being tortured. We don't know what they have done to him, whether he's been assassinated. We don't know. So it behoves on the CID and the national security apparatus to tell us, for starters, the whereabouts of Mr. Seth Osei-Assiedu. As his lawyers, we deserve to know that, so that we can offer him the needed legal representation and services. Because we've been told by the official we met at the National Signals Bureau that they have started questioning him. How can you start questioning a suspect without giving him access to his lawyers? That clearly is unconstitutional. And what we are most disgusted, by is the style of the arrest. Honorable Ablako has said the Gestapo style of the arrest, because this is a constitutional democracy governed by the rule of law. Citizens and all persons in the country have rights, and so does every arrested person. When he was arrested at about 3:30 a.m. this morning, he was not told the offense for which he was being arrested. His rights were not read to him. The police did not produce any search warrants to ground the search they conducted in his house and in his room. Neither did they produce any court order, to justify the seizure of his phone. And so everything that has been done from the beginning of his arrest till now is patently unconstitutional and unlawful, and amount to a violation of the fundamental human rights of our client, Seth Osei-Assiedu. And so, speaking in my capacity as a lawyer, we want to call on the IGP, George Dampare, and the Director General of the CID, that they have been named, their outfits have been named by the National Signals Bureau of National Security as the ones who are currently holding Mr. Seth Osei-Assiedu. And so we want to see him. We want to know how he's doing. We want to know how he's being treated. We want to offer him legal representation and legal services. They should give us access. They should at least tell the parents where he is, so that we can even know what offense he has been cautioned for, or he has been charged with, or for what offense they are holding him. That is very, very important. And so we condemn in no uncertain terms the unlawful arrest and detention of Mr. Osei Asiedu. And we are calling, like I said, on the IGP and the Director General of the CID. I'm told she's new, DCOP Faustina Jewa Kudria Ando Kufie. Madam, this is not how to start off as the Director General of the Criminal Investigations Department. And we expect better from you. And so let us know. If you are holding the gentleman, let us know so that we can have access to him. If you are not holding him, then the national security must let us know so that we know what to do as his lawyers, because we are all very, very worried.
And our Health Minister Kweku Agyemang says his government in the coming days will launch a fund to help eradicate HIV in the country. According to him, the government is committed to the fight against the AIDS disease and will stop at nothing but to help eradicate it. Mr. Agyemang was speaking as, of course, the world marks the World AIDS Day today. Here in Accra, joining me via Zoom is the Director General of the Ghana AIDS Commission, Dr. Chirme Tuahine. Thank you, sir, for your time here on The Pulse. I'm just wondering if you have fresh data updating what it is that country status is in terms of the number of infected persons and what you're doing at your outfit to help reduce the figures.
Well, thank you very much. Therefore, the HIV situation in the country, as we have announced previously, indicate that about almost 350,000 people live with HIV, and 66% of this population, of the HIV population, is female. And HIV affects, all age groups in the country, children, young people, young adults, and adults. And so we know that majority of the HIV population in the country is between the ages of 25 to 45, which is the most economically active age in the country. And that is where the concern about the HIV situation lies, that we need to ensure that we reduce new infections, which has remained significantly high over the last 5 years, that is 2017 to 2021, averaging about 21,000 annually. And so this today, when we had the World AIDS Day National Durban, the president indicated quite clearly that the situation of new infections is very worrying, and every citizen of this country has to take responsibility for his or her own life in ensuring that if they do not have HIV, they protect themselves against the infection. And if they have it, they should access antiretroviral treatment, which will enable them to become virally suppressed and ensure that they do not transmit the virus to their partner sexually or to their unborn babies if they are pregnant women.
The bigger danger now is about the population that's not really aware of their status, because that's also of concern to you at the AIDS Commission. How are you working to improve this awareness amongst the general populace?
Yes, and so the HIV testing is one issue for many people in this country. It's all because of fear. Some are afraid, or they fear that if their test result, show positive, they probably are not prepared to receive such an information. But the fact of the matter is that it is not that scary. And we all should understand that the only about less than 2% of the Ghanaian population is HIV positive or lives with HIV, which means 98% does not have HIV. And if that is the case, it means that it is most likely that most people who test for HIV will test negative. And so we should all see ourselves as those who will test negative for HIV. Of course, if you know that you have high risk of getting infected, then you have to be aware that your test results may be positive. But even if it is positive, it is not a death sentence. If it is positive, you can receive antiretroviral treatment that would enable you to live normal life like anyone else. You will be strong and healthy and productive, and you will have a normal life just like anybody, as I said. And so there is no fear at all going for the test. And so our campaign is that be bold and test to know your HIV status. Each one of us has HIV status. It's either negative or positive. And for most Ghanaians, it will be negative. And so be bold and test. And the test is free. When you are tested positive and the results is disclosed to you, you should be aware that that result will not change, because we do the way the test is done. It is done 3 times. In fact, the initial test is just to detect whether you are reactive to a test. And if you are reactive, then there will be 2 confirmatory tests. And when those 2 confirmatory tests also actually confirm that you are positive, it is most unlikely that any other test will, show an opposite result. And so once you are told that you are positive, accept it and immediately enroll on antiretroviral treatment, because it is important for you to start the treatment when you are healthy and strong. If you start late when you have already developed AIDS, the treatment outcome will not be as good as if you were, healthy and strong before you initiated treatment. And so we always talk about HIV prevention, and we encourage people to reduce their risks and protect themselves. But the best way and the most effective way to prevent HIV is to know your HIV status. So testing is one of the best ways of keeping yourself and your family healthy. Because once you know that you are negative, you know what to do to keep you negative. And if you are positive, you know what to do to live healthy and productive life.
Indeed.
And so there is no fear at all. Everyone has to test to know his or her HIV status.
And indeed, here at JoyNews, we are urging all of you out there to know your HIV status. Tremi Tuahene, Director General of the Ghana AIDS Commission. A bit of a developing issue for you. The Ghana Registered Nurses and Midwives Association is directing nurses at the Menchia hospital to vacate posts, of course, in the Ashanti region. Let's just get you excerpts of that statement as we have it coming through now. And of course, it's a notice that's coming through from the Midwives Association. It's indicating that, of course, in view of the fact that 72 hours deadline giving in our press release issued on the 29th of November 2022 expires today, the 1st of December 2022, we require all leaders of our regional branches and all nurses and midwives to take note of the following. So here's the directive. On Friday, the 2nd of December 2022, Menchia would have to strike. In this case, they're talking about the Menchia Government Hospital. And on Tuesday, the 6th of December 2022, we have the Ashanti Regional Strike, of course, and that's if the regional director of the National Service Secretariat is not fired. Mr. Opoku is under a lot of fire this time round. And beyond that as well, there's also a directive that by Friday, the 9th of December, that's 2 days away from the regional level strike, if nothing is done about dismissing the regional director of the National Service Secretariat in the Ashanti region, then we'll have all nurses and midwives across the country embark on their nationwide strike. So the expectation from this notice is that the National Service Scheme and government, for that matter, will immediately sack Alex Opoku-Mensah, and we hope, and this is according to the group, that they'll do that without any further delay to avert disruptions in the nursing and midwifery services across the country. And so, unity is strength, that's their motto. Of course, David Tinkran-Chum is General Secretary of the Ghana Registered Nurses and Midwives Association, is joining us via Zoom right now. Thank you, Dave, for your time here on The Pulse. An apology has been rendered. The NSS is taking immediate action to suspend Mr. Alex Opoku, even as investigations continue into his conduct. Why are you being impatient as a group on this matter?
Well, good evening, my brother, and good evening to your viewers. You are right. Yeah. If you say that we are impatient, that's quite an unfortunate way to put it, but we made certain demands which were unambiguous, and we are very much intentional about what we said we were going to do. We said that government, and for that matter, the National Service Secretariat should sack the man. He has been suspended. That is not our demand, so it falls short of our demand. And for that matter, we need to carry through our coordinated plan of action. When you say strike, perhaps that's what people will understand it, but we are just seeking to ask our members to remove themselves from Menchia District Hospital because they don't feel safe anymore. And as stated explicitly in the labor law, if you are an employee and you don't feel safe in your place of work, you have every right to inform your employer and remove yourself from harm. We feel that for the man to be able to force his way, not just to the compound of the hospital, but to the surgical ward to do what he did and threaten our colleague nurse means that our people are not safe. And of course, they told us that they weren't safe, and that is why on Monday they wanted to down their tools. But we actually impressed upon them to stay till the 72 hours expires, and it has indeed expired. So
okay, so
that is what we have.
I'm just wondering what will get you to reverse this roadmap that you have issued beyond the dismissal of Mr. Opoku-Mensah.
Nothing short of that. Immediate dismissal is what we are requesting, because the man presides over a section of our members who might be doing national service, and with this kind of prejudiced mind, we think that our people are no longer safe. And the suspension, of course, 1 month suspension, a suspension and a month. What a committee has been given 1 month to whatever investigate the matter. I can't just fathom this. Okay, even a whole finance minister, that essential motion was tabled against him, and a committee was established by the speaker. A committee was given 1 week. How much more a regional director of national health, whatever? So we think that it's just a smooth screen. It's just a delay tactics. Look at the whole thing. I mean, the letter that was released, the date was even not well written. Okay, you could clearly see that, you know, they really didn't mean what they were about to do. So as far as we are concerned, my brother,
all right,
what they have done so far fall short of what we demanded. So we are just following through our course of action.
All right. We'll keep our eyes on developments, but for now, we thank you for your time, David Tinkranchun, General Secretary for the Ghana Registered Nurses and Midwives Association. In the next 24 hours, there'll be the 38th National Farmers' Day celebration. This time around, it's happening in the Eastern region. Koforidua is where the event will be taking place. Our man Maxwell Agbagba has been gauging the mood ahead of that celebration. Maxwell, why is this celebration crucial? It's happening in a time where, of course, government wants to improve production and make us food secure. Tell us more.
Yes, Blessed. We are currently here at the Jubilee Park in Koforidua in the Eastern region, where the 38th National Farmers' Day will be taking place. Like you can see, all is set here with workers putting finishing touches to the event ground. It is actually on the theme accelerating agricultural development through value addition. We've seen some media houses also strategically taking positions here, getting ready for tomorrow. But it has been raining, you know, here in the Eastern region. So some exhibitors here at the National Agricultural Fair, some of them have left, you know, the grounds here at the Jubilee Park because of the rains. But it has stopped raining right now, but we still have some of the exhibitors here. Remember that tomorrow is the last day for the National Agricultural Fair, which usually precedes the celebration of the National Farmers' Day. So here on this ground we'll be awarding and recognizing the best farmers, you know, in this country here in the Eastern region. Let's speak to some of the exhibitors here at the National Agricultural Fair. I have here with me a rep from CABI. CABI is the Center for Agriculture and Biosciences International. Talk to me, sir. What do you do at CABI?
Yeah, at CABI, we are basically a not-for-profit organization, intergovernmental organization, and our focus is providing information and scientific expertise that helps to solve problems in agriculture and environment. So specifically what I'm talking about is that farmers have a lot of problems when it comes to pests and diseases, but it's not just about the products that we need to have around that helps us to solve the problems, but having the accurate knowledge and expertise to be able to solve the problems well. So we at CABI helps the countries as well as the farmers to predict, to prevent and to prepare for onslaught of pests and help to ensure that we produce more quality, more safer food to feed the people. That is what we do at CABI.
Okay. So how can farmers reach you? Yes. So it's not just farmers, right?
Yo, it's not just farmers. We work in the different countries with especially public agencies. In Ghana, we are working with the Plant Protection and Regulatory Services Directorate. We also work with the Extension Directorate, and we also work with other directorates and other public agencies in order to put this knowledge in their hands, build their capacity to be able to help our farmers to deal with their problems. So if anybody wants to reach us, you can reach us either coming directly to us at CSIR compound at Airport Residential Area opposite the former Chinese Embassy, or you can go to PPRSD because they are our national partners, the #1 national partner that we work with. We also work with Extension Services Directorate. You can also go through them, and whatever the problem is, they come to us and we help you to solve your problem.
Thank you. Thank you for talking to us. Okay, so right from Kabi, let's speak to another exhibitor who is here. So this is what? The Green Earth Organic Fertilizer, right?
Yes.
Okay, so what's your name?
My name is Daniel Bessie Jr.
Okay, so tell us, what do you do?
No, so we are an organic agriculture company. And what we do is that, we have a one-stop shop of organic liquid fertilizer. Before we came out with this product, what we did was that we did a bit of survey to make sure that we are getting the right one-stop shop with organic liquid fertilizer. The organic liquid fertilizer that a farmer will need for his entire cropping season, right from seeding to harvesting. And it's giving him all the required nutrients, right from the beginning to the end that he's going to do his cropping season. And that is it. So when a farmer is using this organic liquid fertilizer, he don't need to use any other fertilizer. Okay. He don't even need to use too much pesticide, because it strengthens out the plant for the plant to resist a lot of insect pest infestation and diseases. Okay. So it's a one-stop shop.
So what number can we reach you on?
So you can reach us on 0246 550 992. It's a very reliable number. Any farmer who needs organic liquid fertilizer. Our organic liquid fertilizer also is one of the best organic liquid fertilizer in the whole wide world. Yeah, exactly, because it's having 10 different plant nutrients, which is very strong and powerful. Most plant nutrients out there don't really have that much, but we have it. That is why it makes it one of the best in the whole wide world. Okay. Good.
So your numbers?
0246 550 992. That is our number. They can reach us anytime, any day, 24/7.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
So, Blazer, you just heard from two of the exhibitors here at the National Agricultural Fair, which usually precedes the celebration of the National Farmers Day. In fact, I've been speaking to some producers of local rice here, and they are very excited by the new government policy to restrict forex to persons who are engaged in importation of rice, poultry, fruit juice, and other items that can be locally produced here. They say that it is a big boost for the local production of rice, and they are very excited about it. President Akufo-Addo is expected to be here tomorrow for the national celebration, and many of the people here are waiting, are counting down the hours to tomorrow, when we have all the movers and shakers in Ghana converging here at the Jubilee Park for the 38th National Farmers Day celebration. Reporting from Koforidua, specifically the Jubilee Park here in the Eastern region, my name is Maxwell Agba. Over to you, Blessed in the Street.
A lot of excitement ahead of the 38th National Farmers Day celebration. Maxwell Agba giving us the latest on what to be on the lookout for ahead of tomorrow. The Presbyterian congregation is also here in the studios, of course, urging the youth to avail themselves for leadership roles. Now, speaking at the Presbyterian's 60th anniversary celebration, dubbed, of course, towards the, striving towards the goal and striving in excellence, Reverend Professor David Nianum encouraged the youth to challenge themselves even in these difficult economic times.
Young people, when they're growing up, they don't realize how quickly you grow up. The years pass, and before you're aware, you've reached a certain age. And if you don't get ready for leadership, you may be taken unawares. You are not aware that you have got to the situation where you can become a leader. And especially, I was referring to the church. In the church, we have various groups in the church, from children's service to junior youth, then to the Young People's Guild, and so on. Now, by the time you are part of the Young People's Guild, you should be ready, because by our constitution, you can be appointed to be on the session, the leadership group. So if they don't get ready for it, then they will always be part of those who are ruled by those who are part of the session. But it's possible for the views of young people also to make a difference.
And now the worsening economic condition of many African countries is as a result of emotional trauma caused by colonialism. That's according to activist, playwright, and international journalist Esther Amar. She makes the argument in a book titled Emotional Justice at the public reading of the WASSCE University. There's more in the following report for you.
There was public humiliation and global castigation of a black woman, while de Klerk, a white man who presided over a white government, got a Peace Prize, a stage, and global acknowledgement.
A beautiful drama demonstrating a legacy of untreated trauma from an oppressive system suffered by Africans was performed on Tuesday at Webster University. Esther Amar, the CEO and founder of the Amar Institute of Emotional Justice, launched her book titled Emotional Justice, a Roadmap for Racial Healing, which unveils how colonialism has wounded many African countries.
Coup was a date in Ghana's history, and it was often discussed signaling the end of a presidency, the end of Kwame Nkrumah's presidency. But when my mother shared the story of what happened within our family the night those tanks came, it transformed how I thought about history. It made me think specifically about how that date impacted me, impacted my own family, and it impacted a nation in ways that we had not necessarily engaged.
Esther Amar explained that the spiraling prices of goods and services are as a result of the untreated emotional trauma we inherited from colonialism. According to her, the trauma can be healed by restructuring the way of thinking as a people.
The reality is our fiscal economy, the spiraling prices of everything from food to rent to electricity, is connected to the untreated trauma from colonialism. What does that mean? It means that a healed people center the best for their own identity, their own African identity. So that means that Kube won't be 6 cities, 50 pesewas. It means that Ghana and Cote d'Ivoire would be the chocolate capital of the entire world. It means that we would construct, build, create, and add value to our own resources, as rich as we are.
She believes this can be addressed through deliberate programs, including the redesign of the Year of Return to bring Africans in the diaspora to their roots.
The Year of Return is crucial to emotional justice because it is part of an ongoing journey of return. We should always remember that return did not start in 2019. We saw it in the presidency of Kwame Nkrumah, where you saw people from all over the world travel to Ghana. African Americans like Martin Luther King, Maya Angelou, Fannie Lou Haime, people traveling to Ghana and different African nations as part of an ongoing return. So 2019 is the latest iteration of a return that began many, many, many years ago. It should be celebrated as part of a continuum, not as something individual.
Meanwhile, Krista Sanders Bobtoya, campus director at Webster University, Ghana, explained how harmful emotional trauma is to the development of a country.
We need to look and dissect these issues. We need to dismantle racism. We need to talk about our students' position in the world and the contributions that they will later make in this world around these issues.
Prince Owusu Answers report read to you.
And that's all we have for you here on The Pulse. I'm Blessed Sogah. Log on to myjoyonline.com for updates. We'll see you tomorrow.